and welcome to this quick mini talk about the Teishin and how we can use the Teishin to unlock our money story, right? So, if you guys don't know me, I'm Dr. Lacey Dupré, and I am obsessed with getting fellow conscious entrepreneurs to activate their inner genius and clarify their purpose and their soul's calling. And one modality that I love is acupuncture. And of course, we can't all just, go around sticking needles in ourselves. Um, and you might not even be able to get to your acupuncturist or your doctor of Chinese medicine right now for, herbs and whatnot. So I have created the Teishin. And actually, here it is. This is not something that I have created. This is the oldest acupuncture needle. I have redesigned it for modern use. And I've set it with a gemstone of intention because stone medicine, you know, what, in the woo woo realm is called crystal healing or whatever. No, this is real stone medicine, is ancient Chinese medicine and has been around. There's books written about it, has been around for many years, thousands of years. And one of my teachers is Dr. Jeffrey Yuen, and he has a book called Stone Medicine. So definitely check that out if you're interested in some of that sort of those teachings, stone medicine. So today we're going to get into, first I always start out with how is business soul work? How is it an art form? Money is soul work, money is medicine. So, how is business an art? What is business as an art? Well, first of all, what is business? Okay, business is an experiment in survival involving money and the creative impulse. So, what is art? Right? So, art is the unique expression of an emotion or an idea wherein something is at stake. So, what is business as art? So, it's an experiment involving money, the creative impulse, and the unique expression of an emotion or an idea wherein something is at stake, right? So, what's at stake? Well, your soul and the entire planet. So, there's that. And I've endeavored to weave together business and art and wellness. And this is what I'm going to, in part, present to you today my manifestation of that concept. So, I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine. I'm also a silversmith and a research scientist and an anthropologist. So, my desire to weave this into my business is paramount so that I literally don't go crazy. So, the Teishin, again, it is the oldest acupuncture needle. I've redesigned it. It's still commonly in use. A lot of East Asian countries use it. Japan, Korea. My teachers of the Teishin are both Japanese masters. One of them is a blind acupuncturist, Dr. Bear, and so I've created the Teishin. This one is silver. Initially, of course, they were like bone or other such natural materials, and then bronze and iron and all the the things. This one's silver and set with a gemstone of intention. And like I mentioned, stone medicine is an extremely old healing modality. And the Teishin is wonderful for um, a very gentle form of acupuncture because some people are needle phobic, and some are, maybe for kids or for elderly if you have really thin skin, if you have fibromyalgia. And also, the acupuncture was brought from, well, first it was brought from China to the West. Um, and now you commonly see the filiform needles in the acupuncture clinics, right? So it was brought here with these filiform needles. And I like to think about it like it's very much a mechanical, dissected viewpoint of acupuncture. And it's also this obsession with penetration, right? So I like to think of the Teishin as a very gentle, very feminine way to heal and to promote wellness. Uh, And that always makes me smile when I think about that. Okay, so let's go into space and why we need space and why space is so important. So this one thing that I want to just say is that love is the magnetic attraction of unity consciousness. So that pretty much wraps up everything. And so this can be naturally felt when the gift of space has been received. While the soul requires moments of spaciousness and rest to remain aligned, the ego is often intimidated by the vulnerability that space can like reveal, right? So in the absence of having something to worry about or anticipate or regret, the gravity of such unconscious tendencies creates a stir of inner restlessness, and this discomfort signifies an expansion that illuminates an opening of a previously darkened corner of our inner reality. So, space helps us acknowledge our inner patterning so that a sense of vulnerability can reveal a moment um, when the ego's only response is to loosen its grip of control. So, in order to receive, spaciousness must be present, and in the presence of space, the ego unravels. So, just as food cannot be properly consumed without allowing space for digestion, we can't be fully aware and aligned and heart centered without space, right? So, space exists as a silent force, and the ego desperately tries to avoid it because it perceives space as loneliness and isolation. So, on the other hand, the soul honors the gift of space as the environment of solitude where deeper connections are created. So, we understand the benefits of a meditative space, um, a meditative state, and a bit of space. Okay, so a simple acupuncture routine will help to manage some of the effects of stress and anxiety on the body. Chi or life force travels through the body in channels, which are like highways. There are certain stops or nodes along the highways where energy accumulates, right? And can be more easily accessed. So these are the acupuncture points, these accumulations of chi, basically. So, and in general, shorter treatment more frequently is more effective and longer lasting than a longer treatment less frequently. And I was having problems with my mic earlier, so if you can't hear me, let me know. I hope that the audio is okay now. So again, when we're using the Teishin, it's not a deep tissue massage. We're going to be very gentle with ourselves, right? And activating Qi at the acupuncture points helps release muscle tension and promotes blood circulation. So acupuncture also mobilizes Qi in the channels and communicates with the nervous system to stimulate the release of endorphins. We know about the fight, flight, and freeze responses of the sympathetic nervous system. So stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, while acupuncture activates the parasympathetic nervous system of the body, which begins relaxation. So acupuncture blocks stress-induced elevations of the sympathetic NPY pathway and the HPA axis hormones. So it affects actual change in the brain to reduce stress and make long-lasting changes. Acupuncture helps to stimulate the body's nervous system, like I was saying, and release these neurochemical messenger molecules. And this stimulation brings some biochemical changes that influence the homeostatic mechanisms of the body and produce emotional and physical well being. And we're going to talk a little bit more about homeostasis soon. And acupuncture decreases stress by releasing the endorphins, which are the natural painkiller chemicals in the brain. And this therapy, again, improves blood circulation throughout the body and boosts the amount of oxygen in the tissues. That's a really big deal. The Teishin induces all of this and more, and it's a gentle, pain free technique, right? So there's way much more than chemistry at play here. We know this. We know that we are accessing the whole being, and that traditional East Asian medicine is the oldest, most efficacious holistic medicine. So, what does holistic health even mean? Holistic means understanding that every human manifests on three levels: body, mind, and spirit. Being healthy, therefore, means being vital and balanced on each of these three levels, and the levels being balanced among themselves. You know, they're all interwoven and interconnected. So, our culture places considerable emphasis on physical well being, right? Like, as evidenced by the abundant availability of diet plans and exercise routines, and oh my gosh, food supplements. My patients would come in with like bags of really nasty old vitamins, and we'd gradually get them off that shit. So, still, many patients come to us like with these physical symptoms, and we often find that even when the physical symptoms are resolved, patients are far from well. Or maybe your clients, if you're not, if you don't have patients, you have clients that you're working with, they're far from well, even if their physical symptoms may have receded. And mentally, they may still be in a quite negative state, right? Like confused and unclear and unstable and unfocused. Spiritually, they may be dull, depressed, or angry, agitated, fearful, resentful, and just lacking that brilliance and that spark that is the birthright of every human being. In a matter of time, the physical symptoms often reoccur, or new physical symptoms reappear. So, as the real underlying trauma exists at the level of the mind, and then more often the level of the spirit. Um, so, imbalance at these levels must negatively impact the health of the physical body, too, of course, right? So, certainly the health of the body and the mind are important, and we can eat right, we can exercise, study, and learn in order to strengthen these levels, and yet neglect the most essential part of ourselves, the spirit, who we are at the core of our identity. So, we're going to use the point, and I'm going to share one point with you today, the points with their spiritual connotations. Each acupuncture point um, has a name translated from the Chinese characters, which offers insight into the unique spiritual gift the point is capable of delivering. So when we use the Teishin, we are tuning into our own or another's field. And this, look, I know that might seem like woo woo, but it's most definitely not woo woo. Um, I'm first a research scientist, and then second a total geek. And study after quality study has is showing the efficacy of human connection and intention, and heart resonance and the morphic field. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Heart Math Institute, but they have done studies in this, and I've gone to conferences. One of them was the Science of Consciousness, and yeah, this morphic field, this is a real thing, and that's getting a little bit into even quantum physics. So we won't go there today. So the Teishin opens this door, right? So, how does that relate to our physical health and our money? Okay, I could literally go on about this part, but I'm going to keep it brief for this talk. First, the root causes of illness are imbalanced emotions. The most common cause of an imbalanced emotional capacity is a disconnection from our whole true self. The roots of separation within ourselves is most commonly caused by money stress. That is what we're doing here. That's what I found clinically, and that's where my obsession with money as soul work began. So the culture, our culture, right, breeds division from our true nature and encourage irrational fears and anxiety and grief with money. There are lots of reasons that we unconsciously rebel against and even repel money. Our society places money into the collective shadow. So we are here to reclaim our sovereignty. This takes us back to space and the practice. So it's not about the outcome here, it's about the space and the practice. Why, might you ask? Well, because the practice is the only thing that we can control. So your sovereignty is your power, and your power is in your purpose. So being a conscious entrepreneur is not about a thing that you achieve, but a thing that you commit to. So, if you're not familiar with the five phases of nature according to traditional East Asian medicine, which is fire, earth, metal, water, wood, we go through these phases throughout our lives, throughout a year, throughout a day, even. So they each have emotional and physical connotations and connections. So I've mapped each phase with the archetypes of Carl Jung, and into the hero's journey as made popular by mythologist Joseph Campbell, though I reframe it as the heroine's journey. And we can see that in such stories as Alice in Wonderland, um, and The Wizard of Oz and the Nutcracker, all these things. So, this is one aspect of the framework that I teach in my program, Money as Medicine, which, by the way, applications are open. Click the link below for the private training on December 11th. That's going to be a much more extensive private training on the pillars of an intuitive business and business as a spiritual practice. You don't want to miss the private training on December 11th. Definitely apply if this is your soul's calling and if you are listening to your soul's calling. So the channel, I'm sorry, the phase, it's also a channel, but well, part of that. The phase that I've chosen for our practice here today is metal. And metal is associated with autumn, and we are in the autumn. It's associated with grief and letting go, so it is perfectly timely, right? Metal is by far the most complicated of the phases and encompasses many aspects of our psyche and our being. So the emotions involved with the metal element, again, are sorrow and grief. The issues are about the ego and boundaries and self esteem and self worth and the of lack, feeling of lack of plenty. So, metal is the civilizing influence of the five elements. It polishes the rough edges and it cuts away unnecessary and irrelevant and creates a buffer to protect from the harshness of the outside world. So, I'm going to share with you lung one, which is also called middle palace. It's the entry point of the lung channel, and it's a window of the sky point. It's a beautiful point. Um, they have all these lovely names. So this point can take patients to the very core of quality within themselves. Its name evokes the image of the emperor's palace, and the Chinese considered their emperor to be divinely inspired, an enlightened representative of heaven on earth. I like to say she dwelled in a palace of unsurpassed beauty, richness, and quality. And the middle palace is the innermost core of that breathtaking richness. We all have such a palace within ourselves at the moment. Um, in the treatment process, this point can take you or to your patients or your clients to that deep place. In some circumstances, the experience can literally transform your life. Um, so, when I have a patient who is feeling disconnected or uninspired or cut off, this is a fantastic place in the body that, when stimulated, um, often brings an almost immediate restoration of deep connection. I love this point very much so. I find it particularly useful this time of year as autumn reveals or sometimes forces opportunities to let go and to grieve. And we know that 2020 is very much a year of grieving, to say the least. This is, again, the first point on the lung meridian, the lung channel. It's called middle palace. And most acupuncture point location books begin with this point as the first in the great cycle of all the points. This is because the ancients believed that when a newborn takes its first breath in life, the heavenly chi enters the body at this point, um, and it represents the beginning of life. So this connection between the lungs, the breath, and and heaven continues throughout our life. For each breath that we take, we inhale not only air, but also heavenly chi. It is thought that while most of our chi intake is gained through food, 30% comes from the breath. Middle palace is a useful point for helping to open up the chest and making it easier to collect this free source of energy. One of the things that causes congestion at this point is the suppression of emotions. So, to hold in emotions, there is necessarily a constriction in the breathing, right? So, over time, this can produce tightness in the upper chest. Treating lung one with either static pressure or Maybe a massage can help loosen such constrictions and let the emotions come forth for expression. Grief is a particular emotion of the lung, and there are sometimes tears that are stored away in this point, and it is very supportive of those who are grieving. At the level of the spirit, this point can help to reconnect a person with his spiritual nature. It helps him to see the quality and value in his life. It provides access to an inspiration, that which is both the taking in of breath and the divine spark that makes the spirit soar. So lung one, let me show you where it is. So it's located on the upper chest, and let's see, the video is backwards here. Um, and it's on the chest, level with the space between the first and the second ribs. Let's see, this is probably easier here. And it's approximately like about an inch and a half to 2 inches in the depression between the acromial end of the clavicle. But that's just, this is your collarbone here. So underneath your collarbone, um, there will be a space, and it will feel it might feel slightly tender. Um, so find a large hollow directly under the outer third of the collarbone, and that's known as the deltoid pectoral triangle. So from here, go down by a thumb's width. I'm out of the camera. And then slightly move out further on the side of the chest, right? And just feel until you feel either a slight divot, maybe a little raise, or some sensitivity. Just roll around until you find that. This sensitivity, it might be subtle or strong. So you're going to want to hold the point for 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll first do the left side and then the right side. And tune in as you pay attention to your breathing. Notice whether there is a change in any sensation. Notice if there is a change in your breathing, and notice if there is a change in your emotions. So I'll show you first with the Teishin. And if you don't have your Teishin, we're going to be using your fingers, right? So find the point, and then you hold your Teishin here. And this is typically the when I go over some practices with my clients, and I'm going to show you without the Teishin because you likely don't have your Teishin yet. Go ahead and grab one on my website. So you can tap here, right? You can just hold the point and notice the change in your breathing. So you can massage the point. I like to go outwards because imitating an expansive motion, right? Um, Also, whenever you are tapping here, this is the lymphatic. You're giving yourself a lymphatic massage. The lymphatic portals are here. They're all connected here. If you're doing like gua sha at night, you're always coming up on the face, down, and then through these lymphatic drains areas. And so tapping this even above, but tapping these very gently. These are very energetic points, and the lymphatic drains are very slight and delicate as well. So again, this is a gentle technique. Is moving the is draining the lymph system as well. And I don't like to use the word detox, but we can just go ahead and say this is a process of detoxification. So again, the Teishin is a grounding rod, right? Like a go between heaven and earth, as you are. It's the microcosm of the macrocosm of you. You as a being or a portal between heaven and earth. The Teishin magnifies this relationship. Using our fingers is fine, but the Teishin immerse yourself in the magnificence of moving and feeling chi. You'll feel the slight tingling, the slight vibrations. You'll feel warmth. Um, and I've been told it sort of acts like a radio antenna or a receiver. I've also read that the way gemstone healing works is through light diffraction and refraction, and the properties of these gems, like the colors, the vibrations, and the crystalline structure, all play a role in biophoton emissions in our bodies. And biophotons are quantum packets of light, and that is how how healing modalities are now being researched, and how acupuncture and qi is going in terms of more mechanical research. It's just becoming so much more mainstream. So for now, you can stimulate this point again by tapping with your fingers, gently massaging until you get your Teishin. They're available on my website, LaceyDupré.com. Go grab it. I can't wait to make you one. So let's talk a little bit about this point, middle palace again, the physical level that we are accessing. It what does it do? It revives the breath. It regulates the lungs. It relieves coughing. It eases asthma symptoms and eases chest pain. So again, I chose this point. Thank you, 2020, for making the choice of this point so easy. How about the emotional and the mental realm? What are we doing here? We are easing and calming grief. We are helping to move through the tears of grief. You might actually, when you're accessing this point, especially with the Teishin, um, begin to tear up, begin to cry. Like I can feel it right now. This it's a very powerful point, especially when I'm thinking about grief and allowing those that to surface and to exit. So allows one to also take in praise and respect, and revives the sense of self-worth, and that's huge for bringing in our money and our overcoming imposter syndrome, and just when we think about cultivating our wealth consciousness. Now, for the spirit level, what are we doing? We are reviving our connection to self, to spirit, to our higher selves, maybe. We are bringing in inspiration, and we're restoring a sense of higher purpose, and restoring a feeling of beauty in the world, which is huge, especially when we talk about money, and how money is definitely related to um, seeing the beauty in the world. So here is where I usually give a mantra with when we go through this practice in my program. I give a mantra. We go through a few practices, breathing techniques, and or visualizations. But I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible. When we become aware of our truth and we can distinguish between what is real and what is true. Another way of saying that is what is a feeling and what is fact. That is coming to wholeness. And our fears are rooted in what is a feeling and what is a fact, right? So when we know who we are, we magnetize. And when we magnetize, we're attracting people who like what we are putting down. So in order to put something down, you got to have clarity. Getting clear will bring in your service, and then you can create real change. You can't do it alone. No leader ever does it alone. And like I said in my last video, leaders are very charismatic, yes, but they come into their charisma by first leading, by being a leader. And I believe that you know that you're a leader as well, and that's what we're here to help activate that. So let's talk about intention a little bit, and I'll phrase it like Seth Godin does so very well. If it's a hobby, if it's for you, go for it. If it's work, ultimately it's for other people, right? It's a cause to change. So if you're not causing a change, then what are you doing? What are you even doing here? Why are you even listening, right? You are here to cause a change. So if you seek to make a change, ask yourself these three questions. Who is it for? Who specifically are you seeking to change, and who specifically are you building this for? What's it for? Can I say what this does? Like, what does it do? Can you answer that? And what change am I seeking to make? Which is related to what's it for? So if I can't say it, then I'm just ranting, right? If I can be very clear, it's for this. It's for people who want this. And after you engage with my work, you will feel differently and engage differently, and accomplish this, then that is the work of a creator. So we don't want to just sometimes we don't want to say those things, because it puts us on the hook, and being on the hook feels uncomfortable. But being on the hook is actually the best place to be. Now, we don't need to get into why that this notion has been discouraged and destroyed in our culture, especially for women, on the expulsion of sovereignty and one's power. So let's just get to basics. When it comes to being human and the nervous system, we have a margin of what feels safe to us, right? So homeostasis, a biological and physiological principle. The familiar feels safe. That's why it's hard to take risks in business and thus call yourself an entrepreneur. And this is also why we do the things that actually harm us. Maybe an abusive relationship or jobs that make us sick or where we might be undervalued. And why we're afraid to often draw our boundaries, why we fear loss of worth, love, and safety, all the things, right? So that's our fears, and what is familiar is safe. Even our patterns that keep us small or broke or suffering most of the time. Um, Novelty registers in our nervous system as a threat. So what's one big old thing that we can tell ourselves, or that we actually that we do tell ourselves? That's shit. We say, "This is too hard. I can't do it." Right? So you just blocked yourself. Your brain is pre-programmed. It's wired, and I don't really like using the term wired, but you know what I mean. It's habituated into this thought pattern. It's a mechanism that keeps you safe. When you encounter difficulty, your instinct is to back away to safety, right? Well, your role as an entrepreneur is not a damn tiger. Okay? So it's your divine spark, it's your creative genius, and it's your soul's purpose. So are those things scary and potentially so powerful as to be overwhelming? Sure. Yes, of course. So, but do you lie? Do you want to lie on your deathbed and say, I sure am glad that I avoided those hard things like my divine spark and my creative genius and my soul's purpose? Because shit, that then would have been a really hard life. No, you don't want to say that. That's why you're here. So as Barbara Wilder says, money is the blood of the planet. Heal the money and we heal the world. So money as we know it, paper bills and metal coins, is only one of the many forms of energy that we call money embodies. This understanding that money was sacred lasted for thousands of years. When gold and silver coins were first invented, they were considered not merely symbols of the sun and the moon gods and goddesses, but earthly extensions of the gods. And holding a piece of gold in your hands was like holding a piece of God, like holding this silver. Um, and it still has that resonance, which is why, again, I love having an actual. This is an heirloom tool that you'll have your entire life. This recollection of wealth and worth. So, what is money? Is it the root of all evil? Is it filthy? No, no. It's neither good nor bad. It's the currency that we must comply with. It can be a spiritual entity. It can just be. We can be at peace with money as we are at peace with the heaving ocean or the falling leaves, right? Love is money. It's the grown up symbol of nurturing, of food and shelter and hugs that we receive as love when we're babies. So, if we want to focus on our relationships with money, let's do the things that humans have been really good at doing since forever. Let's create that little space for our attention to rest. And that's why I spoke so much about creating space at first. And this ritual will definitely create that space for you. Using the Teishin every day creates that space for you. Um, and as women, we take our businesses personally. We, instead of thinking that we have a system error as a person or an entrepreneur, we think that we have a personal flaw. We think that the things that we aren't handling or that we're not getting done are because we are not good enough, that we're going beyond our capability, etc. So what we need to do is realize it's an error of the system that is set up, and that may look, different to different businesses, to different women, to different people, different entrepreneurs, right? So it might look like offloading tasks to others, maybe even a partner or a team member, creating a form on your website so that rather than having all these potential clients call you and answering the same questions, you have that systematized. Um, because you can't possibly answer all those calls. So if you try to and you fail, you're just going to be really hard on yourself. It might look like numerous examples of automations in your business, and that's another thing that I do go into in my program, Money as Medicine, is these automations and these systems, because what we are creating is sustainable wealth and a sustainable business, so that we can create a sustainable you and conserve all of your beautiful energy for your creative processes. So, this comes back to again to sustainability and what I talked about in my last talk, where we are well resourced and where we might need more resources, more resource, um, time, energy, partnership, and yes, money, but also skills, talents, and system designs. Um, Speaking of systems, I advise incorporating more group work into your business. If you're a service provider, um, the one on one model can only get you so far. And I encourage you to put yourself out there and get your inner wisdom to more people. And I do teach how to do this in Money as Medicine. And I even teach how to create a program just through audio. If you're not wanting to create another course, um, and you don't want to be on video or make all these videos, audio is the future. It's where it's at. And I love podcasts, and I think that they are the best vehicle for learning. The old models of how we learn, studies have shown that those are actually fallacies. We're not a visual learner, an audio learner, or a kinesthetic learner. Everybody learns very well through audio. It's like a direct portal to the brain. So, most of my program, Money as Medicine, when we're not doing a virtual retreat together and going through our practices, our rituals together, most of my program is the lessons are via your own private podcast feed. So, to hear more about that, just please come December 11th to the private training. That'll be an extensive look at business as a spiritual practice and the pillars of an intuitive business. So I will see you December 11th. It's private. You got to apply. I cannot wait to see your application come through and meet you. They're open. Grab them on my site, or I'll put a link below here. And on my site, you'll also see more about the Teishin. And yeah, everybody who is in my program, we work extensively with the Teishin, and you will receive one. So apply now. I will see you on the 11th. And thanks again for being here. It's an honor to teach. Thanks.